views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hey everybody, it is time for the Bronx Buzz, and it's so nice to see you this evening. We have a really good show planned for you. In case you don't know, the Bronx Buzz is your chance to talk with, or at least I talk with, and you get to listen to us talk with Bronx journalists, Bronx reporters, Bronx photographers, anybody involved in Bronx media, and you get a little insight as to what they're thinking, what they're writing about, who they are, and all that kind of thing. And so this evening we are going to start off with a brand new reporter, or relatively new reporter, at the Riverdale Press, and it is my pleasure to welcome in Zach Kostro. Nice to have you with us, Zach.
Hi, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Great, Zach. I'm going to tell you straight out. You know, I don't mess around, and I tell the truth. I have been reading your stuff in the Riverdale Press, and not only in the press, but very often we get new reporters and they don't seem to have a clue. You have more than a clue, and you've been writing really some wonderful, incisive, in-depth articles. And so on that level, on a personal level, I want to thank you for bringing that to the Riverdale Press in the Bronx.
Oh, thank you for the kind words. Thank you so much. And, you know, I'm working with a great editor and other great reporters here.
Yeah, and also, of course, a great legacy for, you know, maybe the nation's best local newspaper. Zach, let's just find out who you are before we talk about some of the things you've been reporting on. Now, you've been with the paper for just a couple of months, right?
It'll be 6 months.
6 months?
This month 6 months. I started in October, middle of October.
Mm-hmm. And where are you from? Give us a little background. What motivated you to get into reporting, and how did you get started?
New York City, born and raised. I studied Spanish literature in college, and then I stumbled into the nightlife racket, and I ended up becoming a bartender for 10 years. And
that's the best training for a journalist of all. Become a bartender.
Yeah, I really think it was, because you're communicating with people and listening, and you're working under pressure, and you're multitasking. And the whole time I just would write about it. And I realized this is what I want to do. I want to tell stories. I want to talk to people. I want to write nonfiction, write stuff about people. So I figured journalism. So I went back to school, grad school, and worked at a few other places, and then ended up here, and I'm just grateful to be here.
Listen, we don't do vague, so first thing, where in New York City did you grow up? And if it's not the Bronx, we'll forgive you, but we're all curious.
Oh, no, I'm from Manhattan.
All right, fair enough. And where'd you go to college? You said you went to, so let's do the undergrad and then the grad. And then we'll bring you up to date and we'll talk about fun stuff.
Sure. Undergrad, Columbia University, and then bartended in New York City in the meatpacking district, then bartended for 5 years in Los Angeles, primarily in West Hollywood, and then came back to New York for grad school, for journalism school at Columbia again. You
know, I have to laugh because obviously I've interviewed so many reporters and young reporters, but very few have, in fact, nobody else has said, yeah, I was a bartender, and that was the perfect conditioner for me to become a journalist. Well, let's talk about some of the things you've been writing in the Riverdale Press. First of all, actually, before we even get to specifics, how's it been? Have you enjoyed, it sounds like you're enjoying being part of it. What do you like about doing the reporting in Riverdale and the surrounding environs?
I mean, it's a dream come true. This is exactly what I wanted to do. Just being on the ground and in the street and talking to people and getting the stories as they bubble up. And this is really, I feel for me there's no better place to do that. Wow. And particularly in this community. I'm from Manhattan. I'm a native New Yorker, but it's a big city, and this kind of allows me to see a different part of it with fresh eyes. I've been to Riverdale, of course, having lived here the majority of my life in the city, but when you go to a place as a reporter, I mean, I feel I used to draw, and I felt I hadn't really seen something until I drew it, because you have to look at it and study all the intricacies. I feel the same way about reporting. You don't know a place so well until you stand there and spend time there and talk to the people.
You've done very well, and really we have such great needs, not only to tell the story, but of course to solve the problems. You've done really well with NYCHA, and I think you were at the Fort Independent Houses and wrote a wonderful piece, and wonderful not because it was so enjoyable to read, because it's about such terrible things. And then you've also done some real good work on shelters and homelessness. Talk to me a little bit about what you discovered, maybe one or two things that you didn't get to report, or just give me some of your impressions about what you saw on that particular beat.
I mean, it's obviously these are hugely complex problems, and I would not say I have an answer. I don't know if anyone has an answer, but I think if there's any way to get to make some headway, I really think it always starts with just going there and hearing from people who, if it's Marble Hill houses, go to Marble Hill houses and talk to people, and we hear like the elevators aren't working, or the front door locks are broken, or there's garbage or rats. You got to talk to people, because a lot of the times these issues may be true, or they may be partly true, but it's really not until you're on the ground, I think, that if things started to open up. And I don't know. I think these are all things that take a lot of effort and time, and really, at the end of the day, money to solve. And there are gaps, and there bridges need to be built, not just in Van Cortlandt Park, but I mean between people and the institutions that are, I guess, supposed to serve them. And I'm not saying that's any one person or one agency's fault, but I think one way of starting to bridge that is really giving people a voice in a newspaper, and you can do that by talking to them and hearing what their story is.
Yeah, and that's what you're able to do. One story that kind of made me chuckle, and I guess it's almost like watching a car accident. Not that is funny, but kind of a human interest thing to some degree. That these thieves got into the basement of Staples and stole hundreds of thousands of dollars. An incredible story. I don't know what you would want to comment on, but what I saw, you wrote it well and all that kind of stuff. What do you make of the fact that it seems that if they had that amount of money there, it should not have been so easy for two people to get in there and commandeer the space and get the heck out of there with all that cash?
No, you would think not. There's a lot of money. That I heard all kinds of speculation and rumors. I heard people saying inside job, and really I have no idea about that. I think this would have required a much deeper dive to corroborate any of that, anymore a weekly paper, so we can only talk to so many people and for so long. But I mean, look, I think if anyone wants to get something done, and they're intent on doing this, and they know a way in, they can probably accomplish it.
Yeah, to me, they would have had to have some significant inside or pre-information about it to know that that amount of money was there, to know that they would have to get in, etc. And as I understand, they haven't caught the guys, right? I mean, these guys are still running out there with all that money, I guess.
If they have, I haven't been pursuing it since the publication, but I have not heard that they've been caught.
Yeah. Listen, another story that you did, which has engendered a significant amount of reaction in the letter writing and the editorial pages, was this idea for a statewide plastic bag ban.
Right.
I will tell you on a personal level, I would love to see anything we can do because these things are literally suffocating the planet Earth. Well, what's your own thought on that? I mean, I guess from a reporter's standpoint, do you think it's realistic? Do you think we'll ever get to a point where New York will be like some of the other states, whether it be California or Massachusetts, like the ones that have banned plastic bags, or is the politics still too heavy on that?
I think the politics are heavy, but I think that could be said of both sides, and at least from a lot of activists in this neighborhood, it seems, and those who I spoke with who I would say are speaking on behalf of a lot of people, it sounds like there is a very strong push for this, and they've certainly made a strong case for not only the financial and environmental benefits of doing away with plastic bags, but also, I think some people argue that it's not convenient, but as one person said to me, yes, convenience is important, and I agree with that. But at the end of the day, as she said, perhaps we have to think about the planet. And so, I mean, I can't say I don't want to inject my opinion in this. But I think a strong case has been made for the environmental and financial benefits to getting rid of plastic bags, and I think there are alternatives if they weren't used.
Yeah, I have to agree that to me it's a systemic thing that if you create a system, whether you make cloth bags available, or even you, rather than ban them outright, you start the process that anybody brings in a cloth bag gets 10 cents off their or an extra 50 cents off their purchase or something like that. Then you'll start to encourage people to do it, and then you can move closer to banning them. But my own personal feeling is to do nothing would be really. A mistake, because I think we really do need to do something. Listen, let's just talk about the future. Are there kinds of stories you like to cover more than others? And are there things that, we'll tell your editor, Michael Hinman, to get Zach on these stories? He likes these. Is there something that you like to cover better than others?
There absolutely are. I'm generally drawn to, I guess, darker stories. I know that sounds very broad and vague, but
well, you mean like the homeless stories or the nitrous story, that kind of thing?
And there's really, I wouldn't say I would nail myself to a beat. I'm just drawn to really when it starts with any person with a compelling story. I want to talk to them. If they're often it falls into maybe criminal justice. I'm fascinated by drugs, the opioid epidemic, which is, of course, is a nationwide thing, but it certainly is hitting the Bronx hard, and progress being made on different fronts. And then also, like the other side of it, people who sell drugs. Just as an example, I mean, what are the reasons behind these things?
Right.
What are the reasons that compels a person to do something, and that's just an example. But
Zach, we're essentially out of time, so I got to get running. But what I appreciate is what you just said, and what seems to play itself out, and that is that you don't stop short. You really do get in there, and clearly
yes.
From talking to you, it sounds like that's what your passion is. Listen, you've been great on the show. More importantly, you've been great for the people of the Bronx and certainly the people in Riverdale who read the Riverdale Press. And we wish you good continued success. And we certainly hope that you'll come back on the show and talk with us about some more stuff that's going on that comes out of your pen or off your laptop every single day. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Great. All right, there he is, brand new reporter, although I thought he was newer, but he said 6 months. Zach Kostro at the Riverdale Press. Check out the Riverdale Press and read his stuff. He's really very, very good. I think you'll enjoy it. And you'll learn something, of course, which is vital. We will take a break, and then when we come back, we will talk to Michael Benjamin, who is on the editorial board of the New York Post. So don't you go away.
Sure, I look cute now, but when my owner lost his job, it was rough. I was living on the street, and one night, me and this Cocker Spaniel got into it so bad, I wound up looking like an ice cream cone. I cried a little bit, but thankfully I got rescued, so I'm running, I'm jumping, all back to my old self. And I'm ready to give unconditional love, even if you put a lampshade on my head.
It's not always easy being a dad.
Do you have panda asthma too? Does that run in the family?
This is the home of the most priceless kung fu artifacts.
But when you make an effort,
Dad, we're not supposed to touch anything.
Oh, sorry. Go along, son!
it's always worth it.
Whoa! Master!
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
I am gonna get you. I'm gonna get you.
Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov to learn more.
Oh my God, go! Oh, Shane, look out!
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. And as soon as I start to make my breakfast, Hamilton is right there. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. I mean, look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Okie dokie, back with you on the Bronx Buzz. And we are going to say hello to our good friend Michael Benjamin, who is on the editorial board of the New York Post. So, Michael, it's so nice to have you with us this evening. How are you? Everything all right? Your family all right?
Yes, family well. Max had a little ear surgery today.
Oh, my goodness.
Water.
Oh, well, goodness
It
gracious.
went well.
Great. Well, and it helps us appreciate our healthcare system. We hadn't talked about this, but you led right into it. I had reason to interact with New York State of Health and found they were very thorough, and they really had a very nice system, and it would make me concerned about losing that infrastructure if the national effort to eliminate Obamacare went through. So I know you've been a Bronxite for a long time. I guess we love our health systems in the Bronx, don't we?
We do, and the health system structure will stay in place. I mean, part of Obamacare too is eventually moving towards electronic medical records that will follow you wherever you go, and that's there. I mean, the issue I think has been about whether people will have health care coverage that's also portable.
That's, of course, the bottom line. Listen, that's a whole other story, and we can get into that. But I do wish Max and you and the family well. But let's talk about something a little more current, let's say, and tangible, and that is the state of our transit system is an absolute mess. And you and I have both been riding the trains and buses in the Bronx for a very long time. I have never seen it as bad as it is, that people are delayed all the time for every reason imaginable. They're more crowded than ever. And here's the punchline, which I want to get to. The mayor and the governor seem to be fighting rather than working together to figure this out. They're fighting, it's your fault, you solve it, and we don't seem to be getting anywhere. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's been a matter of a one-upmanship because nobody wants to take responsibility for 35, 40 years of deferred maintenance. It's not entirely Cuomo's fault, not entirely Mayor de Blasio's fault. It goes back at least 40 years to the decision to not have regular maintenance as a way of saving costs. And it sort of caught up to us at a time when New York City's economy is expanding, population is increasing, and you have ridership going up, and it's breaking down. And so that's part of the problem, and then trying to resolve it immediately. The same problem you have with NYCHA. It's not something that began with Shola Olatoye and this mayor. It began long before them, but they're the ones. It's on their watch, and they're expected to fix it. But it's at least a 30-year problem that now has, what they said, has had a perfect storm of a bad cold winter, political infighting, and it looks like nothing is getting done. But to give de Blasio and the city credit, they had been and they proved it. They had been repairing roofs for a long time. And if you're going to get at the mold problem, you have to repair the roofs that have the leaking water. That helps create the mold. And then once you can then fix, then you can seal the buildings with the pointing that they've done in some developments. And then as you do the heating systems, you can then keep buildings warm. You don't have water infiltration. You don't have mold development because you have proper heat that's helping to keep the bacteria count down. It's a whole complicated process, but things have to go together. And it takes time for it to come together as it took time for it all to fall apart.
Michael, everything you said, nobody could argue with, but I'm going to add in one more ingredient. It is defunding and the lack of support coming from the federal government as well. Ben Carson's statement that if people have problems with NYCHA, the people who live there should fix it themselves. That is not a helpful attitude coming from the federal government.
It's not, and you also have somebody who's highly unqualified to run HUD. It's also a Democratic and Republican problem. President Clinton's administration didn't put a lot of money into public housing. The recent Democratic one with Barack Obama didn't put a lot of money into public housing. During the 90s, it was about how much public housing can you destroy because it breeds crime, it breeds illiteracy, it breeds all the bad things. And so you had this national trend towards trying to close, but New York City tried to maintain and has maintained and kept public housing going as an option. What I think they've gone wrong was making it the housing of last resort for the poorest of New Yorkers. And so you wound up sort of warehousing a lot of folks who didn't have a lot of resources, and that helped to lead to the deterioration as they were able to fight for the proper maintenance and working together.
Yeah, Michael, your statements, as far as I'm concerned, are right on. My own assessment, taking a step back and looking at problems in the Bronx, and you already hit on all the issues that result from having this substandard housing across the board. I really believe that so many of the problems we talk about in the city, and that is, children achieving in school, better health care, productivity and economics in terms of having adults being able to fend for their families. If we don't fix public housing, it is going to be this bacteria that is at the center of our city for a very long time. And
I'm thinking also the public housing issue also corresponds to the public education problem as well. Where you have bad public housing, in a sense, you also have bad schools.
No
so
question.
It's
central.
The other.
Let's just get back to the MTA. Is this a matter of money? In a way, it is similar to the NYCHA thing because it sounds to me, at least from the way I see what's going on, it's a matter of money and systems. But I just don't understand how you're going to be able to fix it if you have both the mayor and governor at each other's throats. Having said that, this is not the first time a mayor of New York and a governor of New York don't get along.
That's absolutely true. Back in our day when we were kids growing up, it was Rockefeller and Lindsay were constantly at each other's throats.
That's right. End in sight? We don't know.
Well, but the important thing, though, is that the city has been forced to pay towards the subway recovery plan that the mayor, that the governor and the MTA have put together. It's whether or not the timetables will be met, and then going forward, you'll have constant, regular maintenance to maintain the system, and then whether or not riders will be comfortable in accepting some of the delays or the shutdown of lines over a course of a year as they get repaired.
Michael, we have just a couple of minutes. I'm just curious. Do you think Cynthia Nixon's run for governor is serious and really will push the governor? He's already obviously worked to negotiate with the IDC and bring them on board. Many people feel it's partially because of the pressure he's feeling. How serious a run do you think her candidacy is?
It's very serious, and it's not. It's serious. She says she's running. She seems to she's running hard. She's hitting on all the issues, and the governor, she's running against the incumbent, the two-term 8-year incumbent, is running scared, and so obviously he takes it seriously. And I think all New Yorkers should take her candidacy seriously. But nobody is really a serious candidate until they get on the ballot. And Ms. Nixon's campaign hasn't said how they're going to do it, whether they're going to go the convention route and having the state committee apportion a portion of the state committee votes so they don't have to go for the petition route or go directly petition route. And is she going to seek, let's say, a third party like a Working Families Party or the Reform Party and then run a serious campaign not only in the Democratic primary but then from September in November as a third-party candidate?
I think she has a fundamental philosophical issue, and that is she wants to hit the governor on ethics, and we can understand that. But at the same time, she can't partner up with de Blasio and turn a blind eye to the ethics questions that continually seem to be coming up. So I feel like as right as she might be at hitting the governor in a vulnerable spot, she's going to be just as vulnerable if she doesn't say, well, wait a minute, it's some of that same kind of thing, that same kind of lobbying is going on right with a guy that I support.
I think as things progress and move forward, she'll probably have to do that. As you know, the mayor hasn't formally endorsed her nor the governor, and it's likely he'll endorse the governor as a loyal machine Democrat. Yeah, I suspect he'll endorse the governor, or he'll sit in the sidelines until late. But I don't see him personally and publicly endorsing her because it would then give her his baggage. And if they're serious, she wouldn't want to have his baggage attached to her. The smart thing is she's using some of his campaign people, and I think that's enough of a signal that somehow maybe he's supporting what she's doing. Right. We'll see.
Michael Benjamin,
I think it's a serious campaign. She's hitting all the right issues. I wish she would visit the Latino community. I wish she'd go upstate and visit the Native American nations, because the governor has really ignored, in my view, both of those communities seriously.
We're going to
focus on Puerto Rico.
Michael, we're going to have to go. You're a great guest. We're going to have you back. We appreciate your time. Good luck to Max and good health to him and to you. And we'll see you around town.
Thank you, Gary.
Great.
Take care.
All right, there you go. That's the Bronx Buzz for this evening. Two really insightful reporters, and that's how we do it here on BronxNet Television. On Monday night on Bronx Talk, we will be moderating a debate between the candidates in the 80th Assembly District. So please join us for that. Good night.